Okay, got another one for you, and played an interesting game. So I think it hits on some key ideas with how to play the classical King's Indian structure. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And you say, well, classical King's Indian, how come you're starting with e4? Well, keep in mind, if black is playing flexible with a move like g6, we take the center, and you have the option here on multiple ways to play, whether you're a king pawn or queen pawn player or somewhere in between, like me. Um, like Probably the most common move here is going to be knight c3, and then after d6, I would advocate for either an Austrian attack structure if you're really aggressive, or one of these type situations: f3, queen d2, castle queenside, and you can throw the kingside pawns. And it's an aggressive game, and that's what I normally play in these situations. But I was just going to play around with a different variation as I've been doing in these. And after knight f3, d6, I play c4, and we can quickly see how after, say, knight f6, knight c3, castles, bishop e2, we're back in a classical King's Indian structure. So understand the transpositional possibilities here, and then we're going to get more into this structure in a second. So coming back, my opponent plays knight c6. Say, okay, knight c3, and on bishop g4, I was expecting e5, and you get this type of structure, and I've played these positions quite a few times, and they're not very intimidating for either side. It's roughly equal. Black does have the better of it in the database, but especially if you can get in a move like c5 to make it interesting, it's definitely a playable position for both sides, but my preference is definitely with white. So my opponent goes a6, and this is the first indicator to me that he doesn't fully understand what's going to be required of the structure coming up, because a6 is not normally a move that you're going to want to play. a5 I would take as a feasible answer, but a6 isn't going to cut it. Bishop e2, knight f6, and lo and behold, we have our King's Indian structure, which has developed. Now, let me go back to the classical King's Indian structure, and let's see what's different. Now, in this structure, in and of itself, when you have a locked pawn center, and this happens in the advanced French as well, you're looking to initiate a pawn break on the wing to generate counterplay. So you have to know which wing and what square. For white, it's going to be c5. For black, it's going to be f5. And all of the major plans revolve around these. For instance, the main plan for white here is the bayonet with b4. And then black gets his knight out of the way, and both sides are actively playing plans that white's playing for this in the long term, but in the meantime, the opportunity has presented itself for this, and this is one of the main lines of the King's Indian. So understand the typical plan, and it should be noted that this bishop is really needed to stay alive if you plan to go for any sort of attack on the king side, because if this bishop gets traded off, your attack is going to be seriously cut short, but white will still have all the pressure, as we're going to see in this main game, which is why I found it interesting. So let's get back to this position, and essentially black's played a move that is not going to help with my coming plan of c5. And bishop on g4 is telegraphing that at some point he's probably going to take on f3, and I'm not going to be attacked very viciously. So knight d2, I'm like, okay, good bishop, bad bishop, good bishop, bad bishop. Do you want to trade the bad one for the good one? Sure, okay, well that helps me with my development. It connects the rooks. You go b6 to stop c5. You clearly understood that's my counterplay, but you can't stop it. I get in c5 without difficulty, and trying to slow it down is simply making it worse. And we're going to run a clinic now, c6, shutting it down. And the only shot black has here is to go all out on the king side. But rook a8 is not going to do. And even the dirty move, knight takes c7 is here, because on queen takes we have rook a7. And this is very much like me. I'm very focused on the squeeze, so often in these bullet and blitz games I will miss, you know, these type of simple tactics that I would find in a longer time control game. But you can tell that my mind is hitting on the right plan with rook a7, and I am simply looking to improve over here. Black's pieces are still paralyzed, and b6 immediately is stronger than what I played in the game, but I'm a Luft type of guy, and the evaluation's cut in half, but plus 4, almost plus 5 and change is good enough for me in a game. b6 would have been the best move here, and after king h7, knight c4, I did miss an opportunity for black here when I played knight c4, that if bishop h6 happens, I actually have to go f4 here. But it's a testament to how winning this position is that it's still plus 3 for white. But my opponent missed this opportunity and played f5, and now b6, and it is completely over. Takes, and I could take the knight on e7, but what can he do here? That was my major point, because say for instance knight c8, I'm gonna have rook b7 and then knight c7, and this is also absolutely crushing. So rook f7, I'll take there, and then we liquidate into this ending, and the position's so winning that I could take on g7 and win. But rook d7 is fine, and there's no way to stop the pawn march. I was hoping for something like king h7, where you can even take here and then go d6, because the pawn is immune to capture. And this is what I'd planned to do if the game continued, but my opponent resigned. So this is just a little touching upon some ideas in the classical closed pawn structure of the King's Indian. And as we can see from this game starting with 1e4, it can pop up from numerous structures. So having an idea of what to do on both sides of the board is very important.